Okay, this is the first game I'm watching. It's a TVZ, and I assume that you're gonna go for Marines and Medivacs, because that's what I saw in the other game. Important thing to note about Marines and Medivacs, right, is that a 200 unit space army of Marines with Medivacs is going to be like 6 or 7k, and a 200 unit space Zerg army of Broodlord and Fester Ultra or something, like super late game, it's going to be about 13 or 14k, so more than double the size of a Marine Medivac army. So Marine Medivac is only viable in the very short window between when you finish 2-2 and whenever he finishes his hive. If you haven't gotten a huge lead by then, you probably can't win, unless he's terrible, like really terrible. So it's important, I mean, it is important to get your third and to keep your income up so that you can apply constant pressure, but you kind of have to have already won almost before you even secure your third. Not before, but like within a couple minutes of, right? Because you're going to do a giant push across the field at the same time as you're trying to secure your third. And if that push goes terribly, he's going to come crush your third, and then you're never going to get a third and you're going to starve to death. Or you're going to secure your third, which is going to allow you to push into the later game, but the later game is not going to work because you're making Marines and Medivacs. So really it's all about winning the second fight and making sure that you bring exactly all of your army to that first and second fight so that you can win the second fight. So it looks like you've opened early command center and then 4 Raxes. I would recommend actually against early command center builds, because if you open 4 racks and then add a command center at like 42 supply, right, and then you pressure with your first group of Marines, probably 20 of them, at around 5 minutes and 40 seconds or 50 seconds or something, the Zerg kind of has to cut economy in order to survive that. He has to have 4 queens and 2 spines out, or he has to make 6 roaches, or he has to, you know, whatever he needs to do to survive 20 Marines. So you pull him down to your level. So even though you expo later, you actually end up still even on economy, but you end up even on economy and you've slowed down the pace of the game, right? If he sprints and you sprint, you're still going to hit 2-2 at 14 minutes either way, but if you guys both sprint to a huge economy and a higher tech, then you're going to end up with only a 2-minute window between when you hit 2-2 at 14 minutes and when he gets hive at 16 or 18 minutes. Whereas if you slow both of you down and you still hit 2-2 at 14 minutes and he hits 2-2 at 14 minutes, his hive will be delayed until, you know, 20 or something, which gives you 6 minutes to win the game instead of 2. So it's a big deal. You should try some non-early CC builds in TVZ, and don't try to, I mean, obviously try to win the game with your first Marine pressure, but it doesn't need to win the game. It just needs to provoke a response. So if he makes, you know, 20 Lings and 4 queens and pushes you back, just retreat and kill some of the Lings and keep the pressure on. Keep him making army, keep him thinking about defense and stuff. You don't have to actually kill him or do damage. So this is too many racks, obviously. I mean, I think that should be pretty clear. This is 9 racks on 2 bases without full saturation on both bases. So the army you're actually going to be able to produce from 9 racks is going to be a lot smaller than the army you would have been able to produce off of 5 racks. If we fast forward to the first fight and then pause and just look at the timestamp and how many workers you had and stuff, you're going to actually have a significantly smaller army than you would have with way fewer production facilities. Also, it's 13 minutes, you only have 52 workers. I feel like you got distracted a lot by that roach pressure, but to have 38 at 10 minutes, this is pretty bad for a fast expanding build, because 37 is how many you can get off one base. So it means you had this second command center for a really long time, and it never really bought you anything, you know? Just kind of a waste of money. So you see how when you go to make Marines, you're instantly spending all your money, and then you have just way too many racks. This is a statistic they actually added to Heart of the Swarm called idle production time. Every moment that a building that you have is idle, it just reflects kind of investment money wasted, right? Because if you can get by with 5 fewer racks, for example, or in this case probably 3 fewer racks and 3 fewer reactor cores, that's going to give you 5, 6, 7, about $700 more to actually spend on your army. And when your army is only 2.6k, then having an additional 700, that's a really big deal. It goes up to 3.3k or something like that. So it's important not to overspend on non-army things. So you're finishing up 2-2, you're going to attack as you finish 2-2, and I think that's a good, that's your goal, that's a good thing, that's what you want to be doing. But usually you should actually have 200 unit space when you do a CC first build at around 14 minutes and 10 seconds. And granted, you lost 3 units, so maybe it would take you an additional 1 or 2 seconds to max out, but you should be maxed a minute ago, and you're not even maxed now. So this is also, your money is really piled up, also your units are in a giant clump. So this is devastating. Again, it's so important that you win the second fight, and therefore that you do okay in the first fight, that losing the first fight is the end of the game, you know? Doesn't even matter at all what happens after that. So what you need to do is push across the field in leapfrogs, the same way that you would imagine someone doing with siege tanks, right? So you want to move your army from here to here, then patrol, spread it to here, and then go macro. Build marines, make sure you have enough depots, blah, 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 and then move your army from here to here, and patrol, spread it between here and here, and then go macro, and then move it up a little bit more, and go macro, and move it up a little bit more. And in front of each of those movements that you make with your army, you want one marine to stim and just run out in front. And don't worry that your army is just kind of standing in the middle of nowhere for a very, very short period of time in order to make that work. It's okay, because as long as your army is spread out, even if he gets a complete and full surround on you, he's not going to trade efficiently with Ling Banling, especially when you have a +1/1 upgrade advantage. Mutas are terrible against Marines. Lings and Banelings are both terrible against Marines that have a good split. So it's good. As long as you stay spread out as you cross the field, you should just completely crush him. You probably try to do some drops and stuff, but none of that matters at this point, so you're just kind of dead. So what we really want to look at is the benchmark. So first of all, I don't want you to do the style that you're doing, the CC first into whatever, because I feel like a heavier marine opening will work better. But if you are going to do this, if you're going to get a CC this early, you should have 200 unit space around 1414 or something. So you notice how you've spent all your money, and you only built 3 bunkers and 2 turrets, or 3 turrets. So theoretically, if I'm saying your army should be 7k, right? What's the benchmark? I think it's 7. So between 7 and 9k. And with CC first, you can actually get even more, probably 11k. But 7 is the bare minimum. Like, even on one base, you should be able to have a 7k army at 15 minutes. So I'm saying you should have 7k, and you spent all your money. So that means that if we add up what you spent on other stuff, we should be able to come up to about 7k, or you missed a bunch of workers. And in this case, I'm almost positive you just don't have the same number of workers as you're supposed to have. 10 minutes, 38, that's not good enough. You want 52, best case. Obviously, worst case is more like 40, 44. But both of them are much more than 38. Saturation balance is also a big problem. I've noticed both in this game and in the other game you played that you tend to not keep the same number of workers in both places. Maybe in this case it's just because you're building all those raxes. That's another thing, is that when you build a building, it doesn't just cost 150, it costs 150 plus a full minute of lost mining, so that's actually $40 just in lost mining cost. And the lost mining cost of making buildings disappears once you're fully saturated. So that's why with Uber Ups, you want to fully saturate both bases by 12 minutes, and then right as you've fully saturated both bases around 12 minutes, that's when you want to add your additional racks. So you go on 3 racks for a long time, fully saturate, and then go up to 8 racks from there. And that takes away the cost of having your workers idle during the production of new buildings. This armory is a little bit late, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Anyway. So you had a 4K army, you want at least 7K, you could theoretically have 11K, so it's just, you have a tiny, tiny, tiny army. And I'm sure when you play against nobody, when you play against a very easy AI, you'll be able to hit the more realistic benchmarks, and the key is just practice from there. You know, prove to yourself that you can max out in 14 minutes, and then do it in a real game, you know? So, I guess... Well, I want to be able to fast forward it. So, I guess the second thing I'll do is show the build. What it looks like when it's perfect, right?